Okay, so let's just get right into it. For years, Game of Thrones wasn't just a show, it was the show, right? It totally dominated conversations, launched a million fan theories, and let's be honest, left a massive, dragon-sized hole in our watch lists when it ended. The search for a worthy successor? It's been tough, but don't you worry, we have done the hard work for you. We've sifted through all the streaming realms to bring you 8 incredible shows that might just fill that void.
So, yeah, the watch has ended. And now what? You're probably hunting for that next epic saga, something full of high stakes, sprawling worlds, and, maybe a little bit of magical mayhem. Whether you miss the brutal politics or the epic battles, consider this your personal guide to finding your next great obsession.
So let's start with the history buffs out there. If the thing you miss most about Game of Thrones was that gritty, grounded realism, the mud, the blood, the clash of steel that felt like it was ripped straight out of a history book, then this first batch of shows is going to be right up your alley. And to kick things off, we have The Last Kingdom. This show literally throws you right into the brutal birth of England. We're talking the 9th and 10th centuries, when Viking invaders, the Great Heathen Army, clashed head-on with the Saxons. The Game of Thrones vibe here is just, it's undeniable. You get these incredibly satisfying, large-scale battles, but the real heart of the show is the political and personal chaos. It all centers on this one guy, Uhtred of Bebbanburg. He was born a Saxon, but raised as a Dane. And his constant struggle with his split loyalties, oh man, that's going to feel very familiar to anyone who loved characters like Jon Snow or Theon Greyjoy. Now, if you liked that whole Saxon versus Viking thing in The Last Kingdom, but kind of want to see it from the other side of the shield wall, then Vikings is the show for you. This series focuses on the legendary Norse hero Ragnar Lothbrok and his sons, and you get to see the world from their perspective as they raid, explore, and conquer. And here's the difference. While Game of Thrones was famous for its super sharp, clever dialogue, Vikings is way more direct, way more visceral. It's this huge, sprawling, multi-generational saga that takes you from Scandinavia all the way to England and even Paris. It really digs into that clash of cultures, religions, and ambitions that just defined the era. Okay, rounding out our historical epics is a show that takes the action and drama and just cranks it all the way up to 11, Spartacus. This is the story of the famous rebellion against the Roman Republic, but it's told with this unique, hyper-stylized flair. Seriously, if you loved the gladiator pits and the shocking betrayals in King's Landing, Spartacus delivers in spades. The combat is famously over the top, think a style kind of like the movie 300, but underneath all that spectacle is this really powerful story of freedom and sacrifice. It's an incredibly rewarding action epic. All right, but maybe all that grounded history isn't what you're looking for. Maybe what you really miss are the dragons, the prophecies, the White Walkers, and all the magic. If that's you, then this next section, this one's for you, the fantasy fans. Leading the charge into the magical realm is Britannia, a show that blends real history with a heavy, and I mean heavy, dose of surrealism. It's set during the Roman invasion of the British Isles way back in 43 AD, but trust me, this is not your typical historical drama. And what's really interesting is how people talk about this show. It's been called Game of Thrones on acid. And honestly, that's a perfect summary. It just captures this uncanny, unpredictable, almost psychedelic vibe where the invading Roman legions aren't just fighting Celtic tribes, they're fighting ancient, powerful druid magic. So, at its heart, the conflict is a disciplined army of conquerors going up against these wild, unpredictable, supernatural forces. And right at the center of it all is a prophecy about a young girl who's destined to save her people, which gives you that epic, high-stakes fantasy feel you've been craving. Okay, so from a world where history and magic collide, we're going to jump straight into pure high fantasy with Shadow and Bone. This series is based on the super popular Grishaverse novels. It's a world where magic is treated almost like a science, and it's wielded by an army of soldiers known as the Grisha. For anyone who loved Daenerys' whole journey as the Chosen One, this is absolutely going to scratch that itch. It follows a young mapmaker who discovers she has this rare, powerful gift that could save her war-torn nation. And the world building is just incredible, with this rich, Tsarist Russia-inspired look and a deep, dark magic system that is so fascinating to explore. But, maybe for you, the real battles weren't fought with swords or with spells. Maybe they were fought with whispers in shadowy corridors. If you miss the political scheming and the twisting, turning plots, the actual game of the thrones, then this final category is definitely for you. Our journey into the world of intrigue starts on the high seas with Black Sails. This show is all about the golden age of piracy, and it's actually a prequel to the classic novel Treasure Island. But this is so much more than a simple adventure story. This show just masterfully captures that Game of Thrones vibe of constantly shifting alliances and morally gray anti-heroes. It brilliantly mixes fictional characters like Captain Flynn and Long John Silver with real-life historical pirates like Blackbeard and Anne Bonny. It creates this rich, complex world where you just can't trust anyone. Sticking with the theme of outlaws building their own kingdoms, let's jump forward a few centuries to Prohibition-era Atlantic City. Now, you might be thinking, how can a 1920s crime drama possibly replace a fantasy epic? But trust me on this, Boardwalk Empire is all about the game of power. And this just shows the parallels perfectly. Instead of the Starks and Lannisters fighting for control of Westeros, you've got real-life gangsters like Al Capone and Lucky Luciano fighting for control of the illegal liquor trade. The whole show is just filled with conniving criminals, corrupt politicians, and these brutal fights over power vacuums. Sound familiar? And if you love how these shows take the complex power dynamics of Westeros and map them onto other settings, well, our final recommendation takes that idea to a whole new solar system. It's called The Expanse, and it's a sprawling sci-fi epic that might just be the most similar show to Game of Thrones in its sheer scope and structure. Now, what's really fascinating here is how the political dynamics line up. Just like Game of Thrones followed the separate but interconnected stories of the great houses, The Expanse follows the warring factions of a colonized solar system. You've got the powerful, established Earth, the militaristic and advanced Mars, and the exploited, rebellious people of the asteroid belt. The parallels are absolutely striking. The show follows the system-spanning conspiracy that unfolds piece by piece, and you see it from all these different perspectives. That simmering resentment and the calls for independence from the asteroid belt against the inner planets, it's going to feel incredibly similar to the North's relationship with King's Landing. If you loved tracking all those intricate plots, the political web of The Expanse will make you feel right at home. So, at the end of the day, it all comes down to choosing the right adventure for you. We've covered brutal history, dark magic, and high-stakes political intrigue. Think of this as your cheat sheet. Are you looking for the grounded realism of The Last Kingdom, the acid trip fantasy of Britannia, or maybe the sci-fi scheming of The Expanse? The choice is yours. Your next great saga is out there, just waiting for you. So the only real question left is, which world will you conquer next? Happy watching!